Greetings fanboys and fangirls, Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. And today I'm bringing you a review of the brand new Target exclusive Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem Ooze Crusin figures. So essentially what this is a box set, and you get all of the basic turtles with a repaint of Bebop with kind of ooze splattered all over them, and so far anyway, the only way to own the exclusive April figure. So I'm always a sucker for exclusive figures, and when I found out about the existence of this particular set, I knew that this would have to be the way that I would own the Turtles because I did not want to miss out on the exclusive April figure. So this was always the way I was going to get these. This is a part of the exclusive initiative at Target, the Making of a Ninja, so you'll see this label on any of the stuff that's Target exclusive. Before we begin, though, of course, be sure to subscribe and like the video and all of that good stuff because it really does help us out and we truly do appreciate it here at Fanboys Forever. And comment down below with what you think about this set. I know that these are very divisive right now, but we'll get into it and I'll let you know what I think. So let's start with the packaging. I think that this is really creative kind of exclusive packaging that we see here. I really do like how it's meant to look like the turtle van and it's just open right here, and they even went to the trouble of having Donatello looking like he's driving it. Although it is kind of funny that Bebop is just riding back here with the rest of them. It would almost, it would be funnier if Bebop was up here driving it, right? And everybody else was just, he was like chauffeuring them around. Anyway though, I think this is pretty neat and I really do like the art. It is reflective of that almost Across the Spider-Verse style that we see right there, so I do like how it does look like the trippy style that's going to be used in the movie. Up here at the top, they even go to the trouble of having the giant slice of pizza like we see on the actual vehicle and the movie clips. So one thing that I really love from the movie's promotional stuff is the really nice key artwork that they use on a lot of the licensing items. It's just really cool looking. I think that it captures the fun of those character designs, and I just think it suits everything really well, so it's always really nice to see this. On the back it does say Ooze Crusin figures. These turtles won't be taking any orders. When evil mutants create mayhem in New York, it's up to Team Green to deliver justice. Bebop is cruising for bruising by taking on April and the Turtles. You can see Donatello is right there, but they also have artwork on the front of him driving, including the front lights and everything, and how it says Turtle Power with the headlights. So I actually think that's a great touch. I really do like the purple brick kind of look for all the merchandising stuff, and I just think it's a great look for the toys. And you can see we have the barcode right here. This is on the Target website. I have been seeing this April figure go for really silly amounts of money on eBay, so if you haven't bought the basic turtles yet, you might just want to buy this set and avoid having to pay $40 or $50 for this April figure that, who knows, they may even release on its own later on. You can just never tell. With that out of the way, let's crack these guys open. You can actually see that the tray that was holding all the figures actually has kind of a turtle van background to it. Alright, so the way that we're going to do this is we're just going to go through each of the turtles and kind of work our way through the box set. I'm of course going to start with Raphael because Raphael is my favorite Ninja Turtle and always has been. It is important that I give just a little bit of background information to anybody who may be slightly confused by this box set release. Keep in mind that you are getting the exact same Turtles figures. I do not see any kind of deco difference. I could be wrong there, but I've looked pretty closely. I don't see any kind of changes, so I don't think there's anything necessarily exclusive about these guys. I do think that the only thing is that you're going to be missing accessories by getting it this way. You won't get the baby turtle version that you get packed in with the regular figures, and you won't get the big weapon sprue that has all the different accessories. Thankfully for me, I don't really care that much about either one of those. All I wanted was their signature weapons and the turtle themselves, and that's exactly what I got with this set. Of course, this movie is done in a very stylized fashion, and it does follow the trend that we've been seeing the last few years of Raphael wearing kind of the full cap, bandana style of mask over his head, and so all of that looks really good. I actually think the stylization lends itself really well to what the filmmakers did with Raphael. This does remind me very much of what I've seen in the trailers. Of course, it's missing all the sketchy line work and all those extra details that they put in to kind of give it an almost coloring book painting look. It's hard to really even describe what the look of the film is, but it's fascinating. I think proportionally everything works out really well. I think the head looks good with the size of the body. Raphael will be the bulkiest one of the turtles, And on the back, you can see that the shell is really nice as well. I really like the deep sculpting and the grooves that they went into right there. And plus, the particular shade of brown that they used is really nice. It's just nice to have a really high quality, well made, and the plastic feels good and all that, Turtles figure from Playmates again. It does feel like the last Ronin figure that Playmates did was a good precursor to this, and that it did a lot of the same things articulation-wise and things like that, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I just really think that the sculpting work and all of that is really nice, and it sets a good standard for Playmates moving forward. You know, I just couldn't do the Rise of the TMNT thing. I really tried. I thought, you know, okay, maybe I can get used to these designs, and I never did. I watched some of the show, and I actually thought it was pretty fun, and I really liked the style of the animation, but I don't think it ever lended itself well to toys, to actual plastic representations. These, on the other hand, really do. They're just traditional enough, and I think that kids and adults both are actually going to love these, and that they're going to be wildly successful. I could be wrong, but it sure does seem like these are really doing well right now. Let's just look at articulation real quick. This should tell you everything you need to know about the others. The head can actually go way up, which is nice, and it can bury itself pretty deep down. So that's good. We do have hinges at the shoulders right here, and they can go in pretty deep, and they can go above 90 degrees, which is nice. You can go all the way around, except for hitting the shell. You just bend the arm out and kind of remedies that. You can see that we do have a cut right here, or a rotation, I guess, at the elbow. And there is a really nice single joint right here. This hinge can do 90 degrees, and it can go all the way out. You do have a rotation at the wrist, but no hinges, of course. I am impressed that there is any kind of rotation at the wrist, because a lot of times Playmates will leave that out, so I'm glad that they actually included it here. There is nothing at the waist. I'm not really sure how that would work, but there is no kind of cut or anything like that. There are hinges here at the legs, and it doesn't kick out as much as you might think it would, because I think it's being inhibited by the front shell right there. And the other one does a little bit better, because you can see it's kind of skirting it to the side a little bit. And I guess you can kick it out to the side and get more of like a splits motion. These can rotate, of course, at the upper thigh. And we do have a pretty good hinge right here at the knee. You can see that it goes almost to 90 degrees, but doesn't quite make it. And thankfully, in the sculpting, they have little grooves cut out right here to try to help the articulation out just a little, so I do appreciate it. Right here at the calves, or shins, whatever you want to say, I think that there really isn't anything aside from a rotation. And down here, we do have a rotation at the foot. Now, unfortunately, there is no hinge right here at the ankles. There's no ankle rocker pivot, and that could have really put these guys over the top and put them into that super articulation category, but I knew that Playmates probably wouldn't spring for that. However, using the rotation, it will help you balance the figure in different poses, and the rotation does count for a whole lot when you're trying to make different things work. What you're not going to be able to do, unfortunately, is have him like leaning forward into poses, because he can only flat foot. And so you can see that no matter what you do, he's just going to go back down. However, the figure is well balanced and well weighted. So you can see that even then, live on camera, I had no problem just, you know, having him strike a pose, so that wasn't an issue. The other thing is that the size he comes with are really nice. This one is just, you know, pretty basic, not much going on. It does just go right into this holder, and on that holster right there, it does stay in really well. It actually clicked right in. Now this one over here actually looks like it has some kind of bandaging around it, which I think is really cool, as if you broke it. And then down here, you just put it in the holster. And voila. With the size in, he does look really cool. I will say that it does keep his arms from going in as much as you might want them to. So that can be a problem, and he's kind of looks like he's ready to quick draw, you know. So it's one of those funny design things to where I'm not sure what they could have done to have alleviated that. I'm not sure if there was a solution, because the arms, this is as much as you can bring them in, but I think that's good enough. So he looks really good with weapon storage. I also really like that they went to the trouble of doing this little brown paint hit here for this pouch. I think that's nice. And I love all the scarring on the front shell. I think that that's another really great detail. It's also nice that they actually have a silver buckle on the front of the weapons belt. and everything else looks really good. Like I said, I think the only thing that's missing is if they would have, I don't know, added like extra little marks to make it more like the movie. But this kind of makes it even more traditional, and I've seen customizers do some really cool things. Plus, there's those new San Diego Comic-Con versions that are going to include some of those extra details on them and extra paint apps. So that'll be interesting to see anyway. I'm not sure if I'll get them, but it'll certainly be interesting. So Raphael is a big win so far. And here we have Michelangelo. By far, out of all of the response I've seen to the movie's designs and different things, I think Michelangelo has suffered the brunt of it. Definitely, this is the one that I think people are kind of like, okay, that's just weird. How can they have the head be that wide? There's, heck, even a joke about it in the trailer for the movie. I have always worried, and I've especially thought this with the Tmnt design from 2007 and the CGI movie, that they always design Michelangelo to look just as buffoonish as they possibly can, and I know why they do it, because they're trying to emphasize, you know, his lighthearted character trait. But is it to a point to where it's like self-parody, or are they disparaging the character, not giving him his dignity? It seems a little weird. I'm not sure. The only way I'm going to know how this design plays is when I see the movie. It's definitely not my favorite design of the new Turtles. In terms of the other sculpting, everything else looks really nice. The head does look very accurate to the movie. I think they've done a good job on the teeth separation right here with the paint. The eyes struggle to get the white thick enough to get over the orange plastic, so you can see a little bit of bleed through there. You can see that the rest of it looks really good, and I think they picked really nice tones of green and orange to work with this particular figure. The sculpting is completely unique compared to Raphael. There is nothing reused or anything like that. Everything is 100% new. You can see that there's not nearly as much damage on the front of his shell as there was Raphael's. And interestingly, even though I'm not going to go back over all the articulation or anything like that, because it's the same as Raphael, you can see that because he is smaller, the legs go straight out with no inhibition whatsoever. The same can be said for the knee joint, where you get more than 90 degrees. However, bizarrely, with the arms, they don't bend as well as Raphael. Everything else is pretty much the same. Now, he does come with 2 sets of nunchucks. He does appear to have a pretty loose grip on these things. I guess you can see that as soon as I put it in his hands, that they're just not wanting to stay that good. So that's definitely an issue. Let's see if this hand does any better. Yeah, this hand is good, actually. It has a tight grip. This one did not. And it might have been with the way this was packaged, holding one of them. I think maybe what I'll do is heat this hand up and then kind of make it a little tighter and then run it under cold water, and that should freeze the plastic back into place to have a little bit better grip. So this could be a packaging kind of thing to where that's the reason why it's like that. The nunchucks are pretty much a dark orange, and they look really good with the figure. I actually really like this. It matches his wraps and everything really nicely. I do like the silver chain there. Of course, it's not flexible or anything. It's always cool when they have the actual metal chain, but you know what happens. They just kind of hang down when you do that, and they're not very dynamic. So I definitely understand why they did it like this. On the back, you can see that he too has weapon storage, although this, to me, is it's going to be a lot more interesting, because to me, it's going to be hard to store these things. So we have our first ones over here that are completely normal, and as you might expect, you just put those in, and you can see there's little openings in the little holders there to where you can work those in, and there you go. We have our first set. But the weird thing is, because once again, the way he was packaged, you see how this one is open right here, and it shouldn't be. It should be curled in. I'll have to once again use that trick with the water, because that was kind of smushed open. It's not broken or anything, but you know, it could be a problem. And you can also see that the chain, because it's a hard plastic chain, you see how it kind of worked itself free right there. See, it did it again. You almost have to bring it over and put it in this one, which I don't think you're supposed to do, and then have this one over here and bring it over here to this one. I guess you could totally do that, but it looks really weird when you do. Maybe it's because I should put it the other way, because it looks too much like it's doubling, because I think the nunchucks are the same piece. So let me try it this way and see if that helps. And when this gets, you know, closed, it'll do better. That's not so bad, I guess. It's kind of funny that you would have to do it this way, but if you don't, and don't have them crisscross, they're going to work themselves free, because it would be like trying to take a plastic piece and scrunch it together. You see how it just flicks out because it's kind of working against that rubber. Definitely some compromises made with his weapons, but I do believe Michelangelo is another winner. And here we have Leonardo, the leader of the crew. And first impressions are pretty good with this guy. I think that they've done a good job sculpting probably the most traditional of all four of the Ninja Turtles, with more of the traditional mask and definitely a traditional look for the character. There really isn't very much separating him from any other version of Leonardo that we've seen before. Not a whole lot of unique qualities with the design, for better or worse, depending on what you're after. I do have a few kind of comments on what I'm seeing with it. He does look very, very, very bright. So it's like a glowing kind of effect almost with Leonardo. Not sure how intentional it is, but you know, it's there. So he might have done with a little bit of taming down on some of the green, because it is almost looks glow in the dark. It's that green. The other thing that I notice with it is that the facial expression is really mean. And I don't see a whole lot of key art from the movie or stuff in the trailers that show Leonardo looking this mean and determined. So I'm not sure what that's about. So the jury's still out. I also like that they actually have silver paint applications down here for these ninja throwing stars on the belt, which is cool. And his bandana is a little more interesting than the others, kind of being more flared out, so that's nice. Everything else is pretty much as you would expect it to be, with all the articulation being pretty much the same. He does articulate a little bit better in terms of kicks out than Raphael, because this front shell piece is a little more flexible with him. You can see it's not even glued here to the midsection. So this can be as flexible as you want it to be. So if you want him to set on a vehicle, this just kind of folds up. So it's not really a problem. Of course, over a while, this will kind of warp, but it'll go back down. And he can, of course, do the splits, and with the arms, it works pretty much as well as Raphael's did. And the knees right here, you can almost get 90 degrees, but it's about like Raphael. On the back, you can actually see that we have the shell and a holster for the katana blades. Let's go ahead and get those katana out. He does have kind of a slightly loose grip on that one. Once again, this hand is a little bit better, so I don't really know why this is. It is funny. It's probably a packaging thing, since these guys are packaged pretty dynamically. So it's probably nothing to get too worried about, and could easily be corrected with a little bit of hot water. And here he is with his katanas, and I think this looks really nice. Yeah, I like the katanas and how we actually have color separation between the brown and the silver. And Ninja Turtles figures over the years, sometimes that doesn't happen, so it's always nice when it does. With Leonardo, I feel like it's the one where you want the better elbow articulation, so I feel like I struggle against that more with him, because you have the katanas and you want to do, you know, crazy poses and all that, and you want to do the first issue of Turtles kind of pose where he's got the katanas heading out this way. I think that's pretty cool. I think it looks really nice, yeah. With this hand being a little loosey-goosey, I think that's the one bad thing. But I think everything else works pretty well. Like I said, I'll have to see the movie before I understand if the head sculpt is really appropriate to this characterization or not. But for now, he's pretty grouchy looking, so hopefully we'll get something that's a little more smiley on down the line. And it's the brains of the group, Donatello. So this is actually a really interesting figure out of the four. I think this has the most going on in terms of cool details and kind of extra accoutrement and things like that. I really, really, really like how the light kind of pale green goes with this dark purple, so it makes a really nice contrast. The other thing I like is the facial expression. You can see that he's kind of fearsome looking, like some of the other turtles are, but he still kind of retains a little bit of, you know, a little bit of that sweetness to him on one side there, and the other side he's a little more growly. So I think that's a little more appropriate than, say, like Leonardo. You can see that he is wearing glasses, which is a staple of modern interpretations of the character now, and I don't think it's going to go away. So whether you like it or not, who knows, but I do think it does a little bit to differentiate him more from the other turtles, which I like, so that's cool. Now, he also has this like fanny pack thing, and it's just gray right here with a smartphone coming out of the top. You may be fooled like I was when I first saw some early pictures and early review stuff, and I thought for sure the smartphone would come right out and be an accessory, but it does not. So it just kind of sits there, and I think it's attached. It's plugged in right there to the belt. So you can actually see that you can take this off from that spot. It does peg in back here as well. So if you want to, you can actually remove this completely, and he does not have to have this whole like cell phone fanny pack thing. And you can have it be just, you know, more traditional if you like. The one thing is you'll have, you know, this little bit of weirdness right here with this little hole, but it's really not bad. However, I don't know why you would want to remove this. It's not glued in or anything, but I wouldn't want to remove it because I think it does a lot to try to make him more interesting. So I'm just going to plug it back in. And it plugs back in pretty easily and pretty securely even. So don't be afraid to try that out and unplug it and see what you think and put it right back in. I think that's pretty cool. The other thing that he includes, of course, is his classic bow staff, and we'll get that right out of the back. Unfortunately, they did not paint any of the wraps in the middle of the bow staff, so that's pretty unfortunate, but I'm kind of used to that by now with Playmates Donatello's. You can see that it does fit in the hand pretty nicely. It is a little wobbly and loose though. I tried to put it right on the bandages to give it a little more bite to hold on to, but it's still pretty loose. However, if we try the other hand, much like all the other turtles, yes, it is for the left hand a much more secure fit. So it is funny that that is a kind of running thing for all of the turtles, but it definitely is. I have no idea what makes that. Also, with the glasses, mine were maybe a little crookedly placed, but I think it's, once again, because of the dynamic poses in the package, it just got smushed a little to the side, so I've kind of worked them over, and now they're fine. So just be aware of that, that it may require just a little heat and a little patience. Overall, though, I really think Donatello is one of the stronger figures. I think he looks good, and I think he's a good fit for the character and everything I've seen in promotional materials. And of course, before we move on to some of the other figures, we definitely want to look at all four turtles side by side, and together they make a really striking crew. I really like this. Of course, I'm not going to bore you to death with comparisons. I'm just going to show you a couple while I have them all out so that we're not here all day, because this is a lot of figures to review in one. Here is the Out of the Shadows movie Raphael alongside of the new counterpart. And here we have the 2012 CGI version of Michelangelo. That's the repaint where they actually had pupils alongside the new version. Here we have Donatello from the 2012 CGI version of the show in a very dark episode. And people often forget how cool some of those 2012 CGI figures were, especially the monster variants. And this Leonardo, I think, is just so zany. I love it. So I definitely wanted to show you guys those along with the kind of more famous version before this. I did not get Rise of the Tmnt stuff, so. And here we have the only figure, I guess, that could be referred to as an exclusive repaint for this set, and it's the Bebop figure. Now, Bebop here takes a lot of cues from the old 80s cartoon, of course, where he was created, and I think that he looks really cool because of it. He has the great turtle shell pads right here, which is kind of morbid when you think about it. He does have the torn red shirt. He's, of course, with newer versions, they always give him a big gut, so he's no longer in perfect shape. He does have, you know, just the black, like leathery pants and some really nicely painted kicks down here, some sneakers. And I really like the sculpting back here for the torn shirt. The head sculpt is really cool because they really go for the elongated snout, which is great and very accurate to what we've seen from the film. What it does lack is all the little, you know, painted details that he appears to have in the movie, all those little kind of washed details. So that's unfortunate. The glasses don't appear to be removable because you can see that they kind of just come to the sculpt right here, and there's probably not even eyes under these, I would say, and it doesn't seem like something I should mess with. The hair is kind of more curly, actually. It's kind of more wavy than we usually see, and it's not just like a military mohawk or something like that. I really do think it's interesting that they have this like ooze splatter all over him. I think it's cool. I'm curious if it's actually going to be a thing in the movie, if at some point we see him splattered with ooze. Maybe it's based on something, but I could also see this just being a random repaint that doesn't really have any kind of repercussion in the actual movie, no kind of counterpart. I also think it's interesting how his fingers kind of are black on the ends. Maybe they're kind of hoofs or something. It almost has the appearance of looking like his fingers are dipped in black paint, but when you have a closer look, you can see that they're completely smooth like a hoof would be. So I think that's what they're trying to do. And if you turn it this way, it makes a lot more sense as like a warthog. Now, I really do like his 80s inspired blaster gun with the drill on the end of it. I think that that's terrific and certainly a great throwback to the old stuff. And he holds it really well, so surprise, surprise. What he doesn't do as well as the other figures, because he looks terrific and is one of the best looking, I think, out of all of them, is he doesn't articulate as well. Of course, you can turn the head, and it kind of feels like it starts to run into some resistance, but that's about as far as you can go comfortably. It doesn't really go up or down. These shells do flex a little bit, so it allows you to put the arms almost 90 degrees, but those shells kind of bring it back down, so it's just about 90. Nothing really rotates except for at the arm you can bring it around, but the elbow doesn't rotate or anything like that. Instead, it is just a straight up hinge that sort of almost wants to get to 90, but it kind of does. Yeah, you can kind of force it to get to 90 degrees. You can rotate the wrist, so at least that's one thing and something that Playmates hasn't always done. There is no articulation at the belly or the waist or anything. Instead, you do get some rotations and hinges down here at the legs, so he can kick out pretty decently. He does get a pretty nice hinge right here that's almost 90 degrees at the knee, and he doesn't get any kind of rotation or any kind of hinge at the sneakers. But like I said, I do want to point out again how cool it is that they actually painted these sneakers, something that I don't feel like 2012 Playmates would have actually done. So I think that that's pretty decent. In terms of a size comparison, we should definitely compare him to probably the most normally sized turtle, which would be Leonardo. Kind of not too big, not too small. And of course, in the Grand Playmates tradition, it does seem as though the villains are always maybe a little smaller than they ought to be, or they've been downscaled somehow. And I doubt Leonardo will be taller than Bebop in the movie. I could be wrong. I really could be. But I doubt this will be the case. This is probably just a case of them trying to, downsize the figure a little to make it possible to release him in the standard line. So one comparison I almost forgot to do was a comparison for Bebop. As you can see, this is the movie version from Out of the Shadows. I think this is the running change that they did later on, where he has the more purple hair and glasses rather than pink as they started with. And I think this is a really cool comparison. It does highlight that this guy is smaller, but the designs are pretty similar, all things considered. This is a whole lot more accurate to the 80s cartoon because of the turtle shell shoulder pads. But other than that, they're pretty similar. So I definitely think that that's interesting. And yeah, I think that they seem pretty compatible with one another. Other than that, he's really cool, and I think he turned out great. Not sure if you absolutely need the little repaint of the Ooze or whatever, but I like it. And lastly, we have the reason why most people, including myself, went this route to get the turtles and bought this box set in the first place, and that's Miss April O'Neil. Now, I of course don't want to take too long addressing this because I think it's stupid, and I feel like that people should be ashamed of themselves, but I will just address for a moment that yes, this is different than regular old 1987, 88 April. This is not a white woman with red hair and a yellow reporter's jumpsuit that has certain attributes. This is not her. This is a revision on that character. April has definitely been portrayed in different ways over the years. In Rise of the Tmnt, we saw that April was black. And there's even some talk, looking back at the old comics, especially if you look at some of those early illustrations of April, that I'm not exactly even sure in those black and white illustrations with maybe what descent April was. And to me, it's always been perfectly fine to just, go your own way when it comes to what you want to do with this character. So it bothers me that so much has been made not only about the appearance of the character in terms of color of their skin, but also the body type and shape of this character, who is in essence probably a young teenage girl. So I have big problems with a lot of the weirdness I see online from adult people that might even be older than me, because that is really strange. I think that it's Cool that they're doing something different. We've seen the other way a million times, so why not do something different? And especially, why not wait and see the movie for yourself? Judge the character based on characterization. It is okay to have opinions about what you think the character design should be. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to have those opinions. You can totally have those, and everybody is certainly do those opinions. I just personally think that it's okay for me to have an opinion about that and say that I think it's a little disturbing. Yeah, you can have that opinion, and you're allowed to, but it is disturbing how much has been said about it and how much has been made about it. I don't know, it doesn't speak well of kind of where we're at culturally. Anyway, though, I just want to say that this does not disappoint, and I love the way that this turned out. The sculpting here is so great and so accurate to what we've seen in the trailers and things. It's probably a little more accurate than even the turtles are in terms of the kind of spirit of the character and what I've seen in terms of art and what I've seen in terms of clips from the movie. And it is astounding to me that this may only be released as an exclusive pack-in with a Target set. I don't know. And however, though, I do understand that, you know, this type of figure that's a female figure in a boys line, it really a lot of the time does not sell. And people like to argue about that, but it's true. I mean, a lot of the time this is what's left over. So I totally get their hesitance to make this a single carded figure. I feel like they would have been better served to have maybe made her a 2-pack with Splinter or something, you know, have some kind of deluxe thing, and not just a, you know, gatekeeper behind like this Target set. So I think that's unfortunate because this is just such a cool figure. I love that they've done something different this time, proportionally and shape-wise, with April. And yeah, I know probably there's a bunch of questionable people out there that are having a heart attack at me saying that. But when it comes to animation, if you can get a unique silhouette for your characters that's recognizable by shape only, then you've created an interesting character design. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but I love what they've done with April. It's just different than what we've seen before, and it breaks the mold a little bit. The real question is, of course, going to be her characterization. I've not seen the movie yet. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it, and I love the purple glasses, love the yellow coat, and they even go to the trouble of having a little design on her t-shirt. I have no idea what that is. Help me out in the comments below. Maybe you know. I also love that they went to the trouble of actually painting one of her bracelets silver there, so that's nice. And they even have her golden necklace right here, and they have some paint on the lips, the eyes. Everything is well painted, so it doesn't actually look underserved compared to the model in the movie. So kudos to Playmates for actually making something that not only reflects the model of the film, but it actually looks fantastic in person, and having the purse strap and all of that to kind of break up the sculpt, which is totally removable, by the way. And look, they even have the gold buttons painted on the shirt. This is nice. This is really, really good paint work by Playmates. I also love that she's wearing kind of a boggin of some sort that she has her hair in, and this is so cool. Once again, it does add to that feeling of that this is a unique shape, that the silhouette is there. Let's look at April's articulation. So with the head, it can go up and down pretty well, and it can go left and right, so that works well. With the arms, you can get, right at 90 degrees, and you can rotate all the way around. With the elbows, you don't get too much, but you get enough to where it's almost 90, so I think that's a pretty decent trade-off there. You can rotate the arm. With the wrists, there isn't any kind of articulation. They just decided not to break up the sculpt there, and I don't really feel like you would need it, so it's fine. There isn't anything at the waist, and I feel like there could have been, so that's a shame. Right here, there are hinges at the legs. Her legs are pretty inhibited, though, because they didn't want to break up the sculpt so much, so you kind of get this barely there kick. It doesn't really do much, but I mean, you know, it's something. And then you can kind of work them out to sort of do a little bit of outward bend with the legs, but I wouldn't begin to call that a split or anything. I have no idea how April would work maybe in a vehicle. She wouldn't be as able to set as flatly, I think, as some of the turtles, but I think it would work well enough. Down here at the knees, you can rotate the legs, and the knees do bend but they don't bend a whole big lot. And once again, you kind of have, it's more like she's crouching instead of setting. Down here at the sneakers, I am very impressed by the details on these because they actually painted the shoelaces, and they actually have a little track line on the sneakers, and they even have the little loops on the back of sneakers. I have no idea what you call those. Those are represented in the sculpting. Now those can rotate, but just like the turtles or any of them, there isn't any hinges. Wouldn't it have been hilarious if she had like some kind of crazy rocker ankle pivot and out articulated all the turtles? Unfortunately, April does not come with any sort of accessory that I know of. I think it would have been very appropriate for her to have come with her like her little notepad or something, or pencils or something. I'm not really sure. I guess we can count the purse as an accessory, right? I probably should count it as an accessory. She is wearing it. You can remove it just so that you can see what the figure looks like without it. That's fine, but it's a lot more interesting when you break up that color. I actually think this turned out beautifully. Probably a reason to get the set, honestly, especially if we're kind of under the gun thinking that maybe they won't have an April figure anywhere else. So this is an April that a lot of people are probably familiar with. It's from the 2012, and I think it's probably pretty fair to say that this April was always probably too tall, even compared to the turtles. Apparently, Leonardo has something of a crush on April in the movie, I think. At least that's what I'm getting from some early merchandise. And I think that it's a really good size comparison right here. I think that that looks right. She seems to be very, very short in the movie and the trailer. Michelangelo is a little shorter, probably the closest to her height. This does represent everything you get in the box set, including all accessories. And although the release is fairly light on accessories, I do think you get the essentials. I think you get what you need, especially when considering the cool packaging and the nice presentation and that exclusive April figure that is absolutely just great work by Playmates. Then it's really hard to look at this and say and pass on it and just say that you're going to get the standard versions when you have the ability to get something like this instead. I definitely feel like that this was a good value for money as well, because it was $55. So that means that you get 6 figures, and you know, typically they're $10 figures, so you get $5 off. However, I do feel like the sweet spot for this set would have been $50, and I'll explain why. It's because they cut accessories. I would have been very happy to have paid, you know, $55, and I still feel good about the price, because they very well could have charged $60 and said, oh, well, it's $10 a figure, just like the standard releases. But when you cut accessories, I feel like that the least you can do then is say, okay, well, we're going to make this, you know, a really good bargain set and do pretty much a free figure. We're going to throw a free figure in there. So I think that $55 is still a pretty good value for money, considering that they are $10 a pop for individual releases. However, again, it cannot be overstated that they did cut a lot of accessories on these guys, which none of which I cared about that much, but hey, it would have been a nice gesture. Alright friends, and that will do it for my review of the brand new Ooze Crusin figure pack from Target. This 6-pack was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed finding it. However, I will say that this has been a very popular item at my 2 closest Targets, so much so that this was the last one at one of them, and the other was just completely sold out. So I wouldn't sleep on this, and like I said, it does appear that that April is going for some silly money on eBay. I'm sure that there will be more produced, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you're like me and you want to have this stuff just as soon as you can, it would be kind of miserable to have to wait on buying the regular Turtles, hoping to find this set. And like I said, there's always a decent chance that this April will be released down the way, maybe with some kind of slight deco variation of some sort. But I would say it's definitely plausible that we're going to see this released. But if you come across this thing or order it online for $55, it's hard to go wrong. Be sure to like the video and subscribe, and to comment down below and let me know what you think about these new designs. It does appear that some people are a little upset with these designs, and I have no idea what you would be. To me, this seems about perfect for something that kids would really enjoy, and it's plenty close enough to the original Turtles designs to where I think collectors will be interested as well. And with that out of the way, God bless you and yours. And I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.